The fun is back. Oh, yes, sirree. It's the 2600 from Atari. It's the video system with classics galore, from Space Invaders to cars that roar.
Atari 2600 games these days are often looked down upon in one way or another. You'll hear a lot about how many of these games just don't hold up. While that can be true in some cases, I find more often than not that I am pleasantly surprised with how much of the 2600 library is still fun to revisit. So here are 5 2600 games that stand the test of time. So there's really only 2 criteria in order for a game to be on these lists. 1, the game has to be fun, obviously. And 2, I own the game and it's one that I find myself taking constantly down from the shelf in order to play. That's it. And without further ado, let's get into the first game, Keystone Capers. Designed by Gary Kitchen and published by Activision in 1983, Keystone Capers is a platform game that was inspired by the old Keystone Cop silent films. This is a game that is very near and dear to my heart, being the very first video game that I ever remember playing. This was by far my favorite game for the Atari when I was very young. Trying my best to shield myself from the taint of nostalgic rose-tinted glasses, I still believe that this is a great game for general audiences who had never played the game when they were younger. The concept is simple, as are many games from this era. You play as Officer Kelly chasing after Harry Hooligan, who is currently robbing a department store. On a Sunday at that, you need to dodge shopping carts, beach balls, radios, and biplanes as you chase Mr. Hooligan up the escalators of the store. All of the items, except for the biplanes, deduct seconds from your timer, while the biplane will actually cost you a dude, and you'll have to start the level over. There's a mini-map at the bottom showing where Officer Kelly and Harry Hooligan are in the store, as well as the location of the elevator, which you can also utilize to traverse the store. That's it! It starts out simple, and then more and more obstacles are added into the mix as you progress. I think the graphics are pretty darn good for a 2600 game, and the gameplay loop is very addicting. This is a game that I will always suggest to people who are new to the 2600 library. And if anyone has this sweet Billy Club badge and are looking to get rid of it, please hit me up. I need it. The next game I want to talk about is the 1983 port of the classic arcade game, Centipede. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include any arcade ports on these lists. After all, why play watered-down conversions when it is very easy to play the original versions in a multitude of ways? I imagine that anyone who is seeking information on 2600 games that are worth playing today would be interested in experiencing all the worthwhile experiences in the library. Not only that, but if someone is looking for some inexpensive games to pick up for a physical collection, Centipede can be picked up for just a few bucks. And oh, the ladies love it. The 2600 version has this weird story that I don't recall the arcade version having. Apparently you play as an elf named Oliver who stumbles upon a magic wand in his pest-ridden garden. Now, armed with your trusty killing stick, you go to clearing out the bug menaces and save your mushrooms for you and your people. It is very silly and unnecessary, but if you are the type of person who requires narrative context in order to justify your participation, there is your motivation. Like most classic arcade games, the gameplay is pretty simple. You can move Oliver around the bottom of the screen, shooting projectiles up at the bugs moving towards you. The Centipede segments will move independently when separated, its movement guided by the mushrooms on the screen. You also have scorpions, fleas, and the murderous, overzealous spiders to deal with. It is great fun. The original game is my favorite classic arcade game, and the 2600 version is no slouch. Every time I pick this up, I can't help but play several rounds. This is a great game to play while jamming out to some tunes for an extended period of time for sure. The 2600 version even has an easy mode for beginners or kids. When this mode is activated, it is denoted by this cute little teddy bear head. If you are just getting into Atari 2600 games, Centipede is a great one to check out, and if you see it in the wild for a few bucks, I guarantee you will get your money's worth in gameplay. Our next game is Yar's Revenge, that was released in 1982 and designed by the infamous Howard Scott Warshaw. It is a very well regarded game just in general, but it is also the best-selling original game for the 2600, which is an awesome dichotomy, being that Warshaw also designed the much-maligned E.T. game that is often blamed for being one of the major contributors to the video game crash of 1983. Yar's Revenge is from that golden age of video game narrative when anything was on the table. You play as a mutated housefly trying to defeat an alien race that destroyed one of your people's planets, Razak 4. There was even a comic book made explaining this backstory. As with most 2600 games, the concept is fairly simple. Expose the enemy and shoot it with your cannon while avoiding the things trying to kill you. There is a neutral zone in the middle of the playfield that will protect you from the destroyer missiles. You can shoot the shield surrounding your foe, or eat it away, which is one of the special powers of your people apparently, to be able to quote-unquote devour any substance and convert it into energy missiles powerful enough to vaporize solid rock. God, I love old video game lore. It's an awesome little game with a few game variations for added difficulty. This is one of those games that really bums me out that I didn't have when I was a kid, but I am so glad that I discovered it as an adult. If you ever have a few minutes to burn and you want to play a quick game, Yar's Revenge is great for brief pick-up and play sessions. So the next two games are from my favorite third-party developer for the VCS, the almighty Imagic. So many of their games just feel very unique and special, and I find that a large portion of their catalog still packs a punch to this day. So the first game is Demon Attack, that was released in 1982. This is not a game that I played when I was younger, but one of the first that I discovered as an adult that was getting back into the Atari 2600. I fell in love very quickly after loading up this ROM as a teenager. I was always a huge fan of the fixed shooter genre, from Space Invaders to Galaga and beyond, and I think this game belongs in the same esteem as those classics. The demons in the game just look phenomenal. Their design and animation really stand out in the system's catalog. I find myself constantly getting stuck playing this game for much longer than I anticipated when I pick it up to play. It is very addicting. According to the manual, you were stuck on the ice planet Krybor, with legions of eerie creatures screeching overhead. And Krybor, let's just admit it, that's an awesome name for a planet. You must defeat these creatures with your laser cannon and survive. And have I mentioned how much I love old video game lore? Demon Attack is a game that I would recommend to anyone just getting into the 2600, and it is in my top 10 games for the console for sure. If you haven't already, definitely check this one out. And the last game I want to talk about today is Cosmic Ark, also released by Imagic in 1982. This game serves as a sequel to Atlantis, with the spaceship you control being piloted by survivors from the first game. The sun of Alpha Rho is burning out and you're racing to various planets in the system in order to preserve their people. There are two styles of gameplay that loop. In the first stage, you have to fend off meteors, positioning your joystick in the direction of the oncoming threat in order to neutralize it. This starts off as a relatively simple task. It quickly becomes a stressful exercise in Twitch gameplay. The second stage has you land on a planet and attempt to beam up what the manual refers to as skittish beasties onto your ship, preserving their race. On the planets, there are planet defenses that make things more difficult and stray meteors that you must destroy as you attempt your rescue. There are not lives in this game, but a fuel meter at the bottom of the screen. Different actions and events will either deplete or fill up your fuel, and when you run out, it is game over. It is my understanding that part of the impetus of this game was the designer's, Rob Fulop's, desire to show off his amazing starfield effect in the background to Activision programmers. What resulted from this boastful display of bravado was a really awesome, addicting game. This is another one that I find myself playing for long stretches of time simply because I find the gameplay loop to be so compelling, coupled with those impressive graphics. I find the little beasties to be quite endearing with their various designs and movement. I've got to catch them all! This is a game that I most certainly find remains a good time to this very day, and recommend it to anyone that has any interest in the 2600's catalog. If you've not played it, play it! And And there we go. 5 games on the Atari 2600 that are still fun to play. Make sure you let me know what you think of the list. Leave a comment below. Let me know of any games you think I should include on future lists of the same topic. I'm having a real blast delving into the Atari 2600 catalog and just seeing how many of the games really hold up and stand the test of time. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.